Most people quit too early, not because they're weak, not because they're lazy, not because they lack talent or intelligence. They mistake stillness for failure. If you don't understand how growth actually works, you will sabotage the very thing you're hoping for while convincing yourself you're just being realistic.
Welcome to Paper Napkin Wisdom, where we share pearls of wisdom shared by some of the world's top entrepreneurs, leaders, and difference makers. Here's your host, Govind Jayaraman.
Hi, I'm Govind Jayaraman, and this is Paper Napkin Wisdom, episode 322 and number 16 in our Edge of the Napkin series. You know, there are seasons in life where it looks like nothing is happening. You're showing up, you're doing the work, you're staying committed, and yet on the surface it feels quiet. Maybe too quiet. And if you've ever found yourself wondering, is this actually working? Or am I missing something? Or even, should I be further along by now? Then this is for you. Because sometimes what looks like waiting is actually becoming. Sometimes what feels like nothing is the most important phase of all. And in this conversation, we're going to crack open a simple idea. One that's been hiding in plain sight about growth, about patience, about the unseen work that happens long before anything shows up above the surface. And as you listen, you might notice yourself thinking about a season you're in right now, a project, a relationship, a version of yourself that feels like it's changing, even if you can't quite explain how yet. You don't need to figure anything out. Just notice what resonates. Because by the end of this episode, you might realize that what you thought was delay was actually preparation. So let's dive in. Most people quit too early. Not because they're weak, not because they're lazy, not because they lack talent or intelligence. They quit because they misread silence. They mistake stillness for failure, and they confuse invisibility with absence. They assume that if they can't see progress, then progress must not exist. And that single assumption quietly destroys more lives, more businesses, more leaders than any dramatic mistake ever could. Because the most important work almost never announces itself. It doesn't post updates, doesn't send Instagram stories, it doesn't send notifications, and it doesn't reward you quickly for showing up. It happens in the soil. And soil doesn't look impressive. Soil is dark. Soil is messy. Soil is dirty. Soil looks like nothing is happening, which is exactly why people walk away right when something meaningful has already begun. We live in a world obsessed with what's visible, what's expected, and expectations, what's fast, what can be measured, what can be shared, what can be validated. But growth doesn't care what looks like progress. Growth only cares about conditions. And if you don't understand how growth actually works, you will sabotage the very thing you're hoping for while convincing yourself you're just being realistic or you're being prudent. Let me tell you a simple parable about two farmers. Similar land, same soil, same weather, same seeds. They're across the fence from each other. Farmer one prepares the field carefully. He turns the soil once, removes the obvious rocks, plants the seeds, waters the ground, fertilizes, and waits. Not lazily, not passively, but patiently. He trusts the process. He pulls the weeds out. Farmer 2 does almost the same thing at first. He prepares the soil. He plants the seeds. He waters the ground. And a few days go by, nothing. A little longer goes by and still nothing. So he checks. He digs. He tells himself he's just being responsible, just making sure the seeds are okay. He covers them back up. A few more days pass. Still nothing. So he digs again. He adjusts the seed slightly, adds more fertilizer, adds a little bit more soil, what he thinks might be better soil, and more water. Then he worries he's maybe added too much. He pulls back and changes the soil again. He checks again and again. Farmer looks Farmer one looks like he's done nothing. Farmer two looks busy all the time. Only one of them will harvest anything because growth requires darkness before it earns the daylight. Seeds don't need constant attention, they need stability. And every time Farmer 2 digs, he breaks fragile roots that were already forming, roots that he never sees. Seeds grow in dirt, not in clean places. They don't grow in clean environments, they grow in dirt. And dirt isn't a mistake, it isn't a punishment, it isn't proof that something went wrong. Dirt is nourishment, pressure, moisture, time, stillness, dark, the very things we try hardest to escape. We tell ourselves, once this gets easier, I'll be patient, I'll stay patient. Once I see movement, I'll stay committed. Once I get reassurance, I'll keep going. But seeds don't get reassurance, they get buried. And here's the part that most people miss. The soil doesn't just grow seeds, it also grows weeds, and weeds grow faster. And this is where most people lose momentum. They say they're waiting, but they're not waiting. They're planting doubt. Maybe this isn't working. What if I'm wasting my time? What if I'm not the right person? Other people are so much further ahead than me. They plant fear. They plant the weeds of fear. What if this fails? What if I'm exposed? What if I'm wrong about myself? They plant comparison. They started after me. They already have results. Why not me? And weeds don't need permission. They grow quietly, aggressively, and relentlessly. And now the soil is crowded. The seed is still there, but it's competing for oxygen, for soil, for food. And when the sprout struggles later, we blame the seed instead of the environment that we created. We say, maybe this idea wasn't good. Maybe I'm not cut out for this, or maybe I should start over, not realizing that the seed did grow. It just grew where we weren't looking. It grew where we weren't expecting to see it. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most progress doesn't feel like progress at all. It feels like effort without feedback, repetition without reward, confusion before clarity, discipline without dopamine, which is why people quit when the roots are finally forming. Because root growth doesn't feel like success. It feels like work. And we hate that. We want proof before commitment, certainty before action, visibility before patience. But growth works in reverse. First the root system, then the structure, then the strength, then the speed. Interrupt the roots, and everything above ground collapses later. And there's something else about seeds that almost no one talks about. The seed doesn't become a better seed. It becomes something else entirely. Above the ground, the seed no longer exists. The seed must crack, split, break apart, become destroyed. In every meaningful way, the seed is gone. What made it safe, what made it whole, what made it recognizable had to disappear. And this is where we struggle because we want growth without loss. We want expansion without surrender, success without disruption, becoming without breaking, and seeds don't negotiate. They don't ask, hey, can I still stay intact and become the tree? Can I still hold on to my shell and still reach for the sun? The answer is always no. That shell that protected the seed underground would suffocate the plant above ground. So it has to go. It has to break. And the seed doesn't know what it's becoming. All it is experiencing is pressure. And if the seed were conscious, it might think this is the end. But it isn't. It's the beginning of a completely different purpose. And most people, most of us, quit during the cracking. Not at the start, not at the finish, right in the middle. When the old identity no longer fits, but the new one hasn't revealed itself yet. And that's the most dangerous moment because everything familiar is gone and nothing new is visible, at least not where we expect it. So we retreat. We say, I need to get back to something stable. I need to feel like myself again. This isn't working. But what we really mean is I don't recognize myself anymore, and that scares me. The seed doesn't retreat. If it did, it would rot. Here's another mistake we make. We look for progress where we expect to find it based on our past. We're looking for more money, more clarity, more confidence, more recognition. But often progress shows up sideways, in restraint, in better questions, in fewer reactions, in longer pauses before responding, in boundaries you didn't have before. Because that process isn't flashy, we dismiss it. We assume nothing's happening. Meanwhile, everything is reorganizing underneath. Bamboo is the perfect teacher for this. For up to 5 years, nothing visible happens. No stalks, no shoots, no evidence. But underground, an enormous root system is forming. Wide, dense, and interconnected, networked. Then almost suddenly, bamboo could grow up to 3 feet in a single day. Not because it rushed, because it was ready. Bamboo doesn't just grow fast, it grows strong. It bends without breaking, it survives storms, and it lasts. And here's the real question. Would bamboo ever become bamboo if it demanded proof in a year? This pattern repeats, and I've seen it happen over and over in business. A founder starts something new, they refine their message, they improve their offer, they show up consistently, build relationships, learn the market, revenue stays flat. So they panic. They pivot too early. They change positioning, change new ideas, abandon the audience they were earning trust with and building value for. They dig, and what they see and what they don't see is that trust compounds invisibly. Reputation lags effort. Referrals arrive after reliability. Another founder stays planted. Same market, same effort, same uncertainty. They keep the soil clean. Then one introduction happens, then another, then momentum, not luck, roots, networks. Leaders do this too. They say they want ownership, but hover over their teams. They say they want initiative, but correct their teams too quickly. They say they want culture, but they interrupt it. They keep digging. They don't let people struggle productively. They don't let trust form, and they don't give trust first. They don't let capability grow unseen and recognize it later. They complain, my team isn't stepping up, not realizing the soil never stabilized long enough for roots to form. So here's how real growth is supported. You tend the soil. You stop digging. You protect the environment. And that means fewer emotional reactions, fewer impulsive changes, fewer fear-driven conversations. You pull weeds early. You name the doubt. You challenge the fear. You stop rehearsing failure. You water consistently. Small daily actions, boring fundamentals, showing up when no one notices, and giving plenty of appreciation. And you give it time. Not infinite time, but intentional, purposeful time. So what if it works? What if the quiet reason was the most important one? What if the discomfort is proof you're growing, not failing? What if the pressure is shaping you for something you can't see yet? What if it doesn't? Well, then you didn't spend your life protecting a shell that was never meant to last. Seeds don't grow because they're watched. They grow because the soil is right. So ask yourself, where are you digging too often? What weeds are you letting grow or putting in the soil next to what you want? And what might already be forming quietly beneath the surface? You don't need proof. You need patience. The soil is working, even now. Make it a great day.